Kathy's recent travels have given her some insight into getting to her destination as efficiently as possible. It got her thinking about the lessons we can learn from setting our destination and staying focused on getting there. During today's podcast, she talks about your plan for the new year and how today is the best day to start planning. I hope these thoughts help you set a great intention for 2024.
Hello friends, I'm Kathy Rhodes. Thank you for joining me again. Let's think differently today about our travels, with a little twist. Of course, there's always a little twist. We're going to think differently. Well, the start of this episode, it does have to do with some travels that I've been doing. And I'm going to share the travels with you here in a minute. But I got to admit, when it was happening, I thought, oh my goodness, there has to be a lesson here somewhere. But I'm very frustrated. So see if you can feel my frustrations a little bit. In the past few weeks, I have traveled to a certain destination 4 different times. Same starting point, same ending point. 4 different times, 4 different unique ways to travel. Each trip definitely followed a different path, and not by choice. and it had different results. Well, kinda. I still got to my destination, but the time in between was different each of the 4 times. Some of these times, I guess I'd call successful, and half of those times were not exactly the way I would want it to go. So let me share with you. The first trip was considered a success. After traveling for about 30 minutes, I turned on my GPS and then I followed its lead. 2 hours and 20 minutes later, with 0 U-turns, I arrived at my destination. That was a good trip. Well, less than 1 week later, I made that same trip again, but it was dark out. It was in the early morning hours, so I programmed my GPS right away when I left my house. The first turn that I was directed to take, well, it didn't really look familiar, but I second-guessed myself. I kind of blamed the unfamiliarity on the darkness. You know, everything looks different in the dark, right? I just continued to follow my trek. I followed Mr. GPS voice. Well, I confirmed that I was definitely on a different route when the turns it was directing me to take took me on back roads that didn't even have painted center lines. It didn't even have painted sidelines. I mean, it was blacktopped. That was it. I was taking sharp turns and curves and going up a hill, and I don't know where I was. And at that point of the trip, I couldn't access my maps. I couldn't get any data service. I couldn't get any cell service. I couldn't make phone calls. So there was no way for me to even figure out an alternative route. All I could do was continue to follow the GPS voice. I didn't know where I was. I had to depend on wherever this route was going to take me. Well, 3 hours later, I finally arrived at my destination. You know, the problem with this trip was the GPS instructed me to exit 2 exits too soon. This experience totally reminded me of a very valuable learning lesson to plan ahead. Even though we have technology today, even though we have amazing resources and tools that kind of keep us unaccountable, I need to look at the map before leaving home. I need to study the route options. You know, have you ever gone onto your app and there's like 3 options and it tells you how long each option takes? Yeah, well then there's like 4 options because then sometimes it takes me in places it didn't even originally show me. But I need to be accountable. I need to study the route options. I need to choose the best option to drive in the dark especially, and I need to know my highway numbers. I need to know which exit to take. I need to know which highway I really want to be on. All right, well then there's trip number 3. I followed my GPS again, and I started my GPS when I left home because again it was dark out. However, I knew that Mr. GPS was going to tell me to exit too soon, so I ignored the first 2 prompts. Do you ever do that? Does it ever tell you to, you know it's not the right path, but it still tells you to take some crazy turns? Yeah. Well, I felt accountable. I felt accomplished because I knew it was going to be wrong for the first 2 prompts. And then I missed the correct exit. When it was time for me to turn off the highway, I was thinking about the podcast that I was listening to. I was still ignoring the GPS voice. I was also in the left lane. I was traveling in the dark. I was next to some major semis on an interstate. 1 second too late, I watched my exit pass me by. I even, from the left lane, I was cranking my neck, trying to see past a semi, and I was like, shoot, that's where I want to be. Well, 3 hours and 10 minutes later, I finally arrived at my destination. The problem with this trip was I chose selective hearing. I was in the habit of ignoring Mr. GPS, and I wasn't paying attention. Another valuable learning lesson: be present and focused. Don't turn your podcast on when there's major turns and intersections for you to focus on. Have you ever been driving and maybe in a big city and you or your parents said, "Ooh, turn on the radio, I need to focus"? There's a lot of truth to that. Okay, there's a lot of truth that when there's silence, there's focus, especially when you're depending on an unfamiliar plan. We need to be present. We need to focus. Well, last week, trip number 4. I decided to take a total different route and not even turn my GPS on until after I took the correct exit. I did not turn my podcast on either. I didn't even have music on. I went 30 minutes of just pure silence so that I could focus. 2 hours and 20 minutes later, again with 0 U-turns, I happily arrived at my destination. This time I learned to turn off the GPS and the podcast and trust my instincts. I've already studied the maps. I know my highway numbers. I know the route. I know what's familiar, right? I know what I should be looking for, even still in the dark. Have you ever depended on a reliable source only to be totally disappointed in the approach or the results? There are a lot of reliable sources out there. There's consultants, there's software programs, there's apps, there's recommendation. There's a lot of reliable sources, but sometimes we're disappointed. So, as we prepare for a new year, what's your plan? What reliable tools are you using to help you navigate the new year? We can take my GPS travel experience and we can relate it to our intentions going into the new year. Consider the GPS-inspired learning lessons. We need to plan, we need to be present and focus, and we need to trust what we know to be best for ourselves. We need to trust what we know to be our best route. So let's dissect these a little bit. Let's talk about planning into the new year first. If I want to be planning into my new year, I need to look at my map before the new year even begins. I need to study my route options. I need to choose my best options. I need to spend some time thinking about truly where am I going, and I need to document the direction. There's a great tool out there called a personal growth plan. It's a template. It kind of guides and directs you through this intentional planning. Create your personal growth plan. Be intentional and document it. Capture your 2024 goals. Capture the direction you want to go. Which route is best for you? That's going to make your next year efficient and successful. Well, there's a lot of people out there that are definitely going to share their ideas for you, right? Just look at all the ads. You need to sign up for this fitness training program, or you need to sign up for this fitness center, or you need... Oh, and I'm not opposed to any of those. I'm signed up as well. But what are your goals? What is the direction you want to go? There are so many options, it can be overwhelming. And if we try to do it all, nothing's going to happen. So just choose a focus. So number 2, we need to be present and focused, right? Well, in the book called One Word That Will Change Your Life, John Gordon, Dan Brighton, and Jimmy Page, they encourage readers to choose one word to focus your year instead of a goal or a New Year's resolution. The Word is going to help you stay focused and on the desired path. I've talked many times in many different podcasts. I've talked about choosing a word of the year. Go back to December episodes from 2022, 2021. You're going to find a word of the year. Even look in the show notes because we will reference, I believe it's episode number 71 specifically, where I really dove into how to choose a word of the year. But when you choose one word, it's going to hone you in and it's going to keep you alert. Anytime you see the word or hear the word, my word this year is value. Whew! Here we are in mid-November and it's still connecting with me. I'm still making headway in value. Value has so many different angles to it. I thought I was going to focus in one angle only and it's just evolving and coming together. It's helping me be focused and present into the goals that I have this year. Okay, then number 3, trust your instincts. We've already mentioned there's a variety of strategies and ideas that have definitely worked for others. But it's not healthy to think that we can implement all of these ideas successfully. It's not even healthy to think any of the ideas might work for us. Instead, we have to follow our instincts. We have to choose a path that caters to our style, our preferences, us. Turn off all those distractions and trust what you know. You know you should be focusing on. You know the route you should take. Taking new roads in the dark definitely gave me a different perspective and a view than when I travel in the daylight hours. We're kind of in the daylight hours right now in 2023. 2024 is kind of in the dark right now. It's in the future. Sometimes that calendar switches from December 31st to January 1st and we expect some great changes, but it's just another day. We need guidance from tools like GPS until we are absolutely confident in the path that we're going. You know, while traveling this month, I did not always arrive at my destination in the most efficient timeline. However, I did arrive safely with many, many learning lessons along the way. You know, at the end of 2024, you're going to find the same. Implement a guidance of some sort, the guidance of growth tools that others have found successful, and tweak them. Tweak them to meet your goals. Embrace the many learning lessons on your way to your 2024 destination. As you think about this, as you consider creating your own personal growth plan, please know that it definitely takes time. It's not something that you can do on December 31st. It's going to take time for your mind to think and rethink and change its mind before you finally settle in. There's many years where I think I know where I want to grow in the next year, but I give myself 6 weeks to ponder it. And what I thought mid-November is not what I decide upon end of December. So give yourself time and get started. You can download your own personal growth template. I'm hoping I'm making it easy for you. You don't have to think or Google or anything like that. Just go out to unityconsultingllc.mykajabi.com. MyKajabi is MYKAJABI. You can definitely find that link in the show notes as well. Download your own personal growth template and start filling it in. Please definitely document your thoughts. It's amazing how fast we forget good ideas. Well, I hope that I've challenged you to think differently today. I know I was definitely challenged to think differently during my travels. I knew there was a learning lesson, and there's probably more than one lesson. Oh, it was so frustrating, though. It was so frustrating, but so valuable. So many learning lessons. So, learn from me, take this approach, and have fun being intentional about your 2024. We'll see you next time.